All right, we're going to have a look at the process panel in BaseHead. So the process panel is where we can use our VST effects and apply some processing effects to the files that we're working with. It just saves having to use specific plugins in our DAW or in our project. We can apply the effects directly to the file, transfer the files out of BaseHead with the effects applied. So there's four main sections to the the processing panel. We've got the rack up here. We've got the monitor section here. There's a little XY controller pad here. You can see that adjusts the playback speed, the pitch of the sound files that we're working with. We can also reverse a sound file if we need to. And then we've also got the preset manager here. Now, before we start working with plugins, we need to make sure that we scan them in first. So if you've just started BaseHead for the first time, you would need to set your paths. We need to click on the little blue arrow up here, and then we need to add the paths to where our VST effects are listed. So you can see on my system here, I've got a custom folder. Now, if you're not sure where you've installed your VST effects, or maybe they're just installed to the default locations, if you started this for the first time and you don't have any paths listed, just click the scan button and this will automatically load the default paths for your system. Then from there, if you know exactly where the additional plugins are, just add the additional folders with the little add VST path icon here. Now, the blacklist tab will automatically list effects that are not compatible or have had a problem during scanning. It also allows you to add effects directly if you don't want them to be scanned into BaseHead. So just using the plus button here, you can add the full path to the effect, or you can just add the name of a particular folder. If you've got your effects within folders on your system, you can just add the name of the folder to exclude all the effects within that folder if you wanted to blacklist an entire collection of VSTs. So once we've got the paths all set, what we would do is click the scan, wait for it to go through the process, and after it's picked up all of our VSTs, then we can start using them. So in order to get started, we've got the rack section here. So this has been updated from previous versions of BaseHead. So as of version 2021.4, the rack section has been updated to support up to 16 effect slots. Previously, I think it was 12. And then also we've got this dedicated monitor section, which we'll cover in a moment. In the rack section here, we can add our VST slots by just clicking the little plus icon here. This adds a VST slot here, which we can just click on, and then we will have all of the effects that we've scanned in ready to go. So we just click an effect, loads it in, and then we've got a few controls that we can use to bypass, show the plugin. So up the top here, we've got a show all button. So if we've got multiple plugins, for instance, if I select maybe this preset here, and then if I click show all, this will show all of my effects plugins here. If I hold down the control key or command on Mac and then click the button here again, it will hide all of my VST effects windows. So similarly, if I cross any of these off, I can individually show these effects by just clicking those buttons again, and it will pop these windows open. Now we also have a bypass button here, so this will bypass all the effects. So if we're exporting multiple different files, we need to just temporarily bypass the effects so they're not applied to our files. We can just bypass it here without having to unload the rack. We can also enable and disable the entire rack section by just clicking the enable button here, and that will disable both the rack and the monitor section. So we can add as many slots up to 16 that we need, and then we can also delete these slots as well if we don't need them. Now, once we've got a set of effects, I might just add an additional effect here, for instance. That'll do. Now, if I want to save this particular rack here as a preset, so you can see we've got our presets that we've already created here. All I need to do is, once I'm happy with a list of presets here, or a list of effects here, just click the store button, and then this allows us to, we'll call this a a new preset, give it a name, and it appears in our preset list. Now, maybe I've made a mistake here and I need to reorder these effects. So if I wanted to place this effect at the start, I can just grab it and drag it. You'll see the little red line to show where it's going to insert this effect. So I want to drag that up to the top. And that's now reordered the effects. What I would then need to do is if I want to save this or update this preset, all I do is click the update button, select yes, and that's now updated our preset for us. So you can see the little flash down there. So that's now updated our preset. If I wanted to save this as a completely new version, I would just click store and give it a brand new name. Now let's say this new preset, I need to rename it. All I have to do is double click it. Give it a name, and that renames the preset for us. Delete is pretty self-explanatory, deletes the preset that we're working with, and folder here will open up the preset folder location. So where the presets are actually saved on our system, we'll open it up, and from here we can see we've got a monitor folder and the rack folder. So at the moment we're in the rack. Go into there and I can see that I've got all of the folders here for my presets that I've created here. Inside there are the individual preset files for the VSTs that I've got. So if I wanted to make a backup of these presets or carry it over to another system, all I need to do is just copy this folder. If these VSTs exist on whatever system that I'm copying it to, these will also load no problem. All right, so let's have a look at applying an effect here. Before we get to the monitor section here, we'll just look at applying an effect. So if I just go back to just a very simple effect here, a delay, for instance, this large delay. So we can hear that if we switch this off, we can definitely hear that that effect is being applied no problem. And I am quite happy with how this sounds. If I want to apply this effect as I transfer the file, this is done automatically. So it needs to be noted, if you don't want effects to be applied to your files, so you've loaded in some effects here and you don't want these to be applied, you need to bypass or just disable the rack. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spot this. I've got Reaper open in the background here, so I'm just going to spot this file into Reaper. I'll just delete this one up here. And you can hear that the effect is applied, but it has only exported the actual file itself. So you can see it's only exported the actual file, hasn't made an allowance here for the tail of the reverb. We need to make sure that if we're using something like a delay or a reverb, that we take into consideration the length of the effect tail, and we can select a time for the tail. So I'm going to select just 7 seconds here, and what this will do is add 7 seconds onto our file. So I'm just going to come back and delete this one, and I'm going to transfer this again. So just press S, and you can see that our file is now much, much longer. And we've got the full tail of the effect. So it's that easy to apply whatever effects that you want as you're working with them. Yeah, the presets that we can save here make it very, very quick work to apply all different types of effects depending on what you've got installed on your system. Now, it also should be noted, just another little thing, if I want to copy the settings from this particular preset and put it into this preset, so for instance, if I go to small delay here, I've also got a black hole here, but what I want to do is I want to start with the preset here from large, and I want to work with it and readjust it for small. What I can do is just right click on the slot here, go copy plugin parameters, go to a new one. I can then paste the plugin parameters, and that will paste in the plugin and also paste the parameters for it as well. So basically we'll copy the plugin, paste it into a new location. So you can copy a plugin from one location to another one and modify things that way. Okay, so next we're going to have a look at the monitor section down here. So the monitor section is exactly the same as the rack, only it is a dedicated 2 effects slot, which is designed mainly for monitoring at the end of your effects chain. So this might be something like a compressor or a limiter. Let's just grab a, let's see. We'll just put in a limiter. And what we can do with this is this will be applied to the sound as we hear it, but when we transfer a file out of BaseHead, these won't be applied to our sound. We can apply this limiter to our sound if we want by pressing the process button here. So when we have this engaged, this will actually apply this effect to our effects chain. And at the moment, this effect will be applied after these effects. If we wanted to move this effect before our effects rack, so this might be useful for a something like a low cut filter, which we want to apply to every single file that we pass through. We might have a lot of files that we need to cut the low end off, but we need to apply different types of effects. Then what we could do is load this up in the pre location by clicking this pre button. This will actually unload all of our plugins, shift this to the top. So it doesn't visually shift it, it's just done in the background. And now this limiter will actually be applied before the rack. And then of course, if we want to save this monitor section, so the monitor section will remain. If I switch presets, for instance, go and select a new preset, the rack here changes, but the monitor section remains locked here because it is completely separate. Now this also means we have a separate preset manager for the monitor section. So if I wanted to save this particular monitor section here, I'd switch to the monitor tab, click the store here, and then give it a name exactly the same way that I save rack. So if you need to save the monitor presets, just go to the monitor tab. If you want to save the effects rack presets, you would save it, make sure you've got the rack selected there. Now, one other thing is when we've got the monitor tab here selected, if we have this, we can see here we've got this little lock checkbox here. What this will do is if we don't have this lock checkbox selected and we select a new preset, it will automatically disable these 2 buttons. But if we wanted to put this one here in the pre-location and make sure it always stays there, click the lock icon here, and then as we switch to a new preset, these will now be locked. So this will only appear when we're in the monitor preset section because it doesn't apply when we're browsing for effects rack presets. But yeah, if we need to lock these, we just select the lock icon. And that's the features of the process panel.